Okay. Just so you know, the training is being recorded. As I mentioned, we will put this on Grad's YouTube channel, so it's available to you after today, and you can refer back to it as much as you like. I also have what I'll call my cheat sheet prepared for you that is just a Word document with step-by-step instructions and screenshots to help you through it. The only thing I haven't prepared a cheat sheet yet for is reports, and some of those may be individual in nature, because I'm going to show you the basic part of keeping the waiting list in SAMS, but then you may or may not want to do more in your own area, different tracking, and that's perfectly okay. There are certain basics we'll need to run the statewide report, but if you choose to do more than what we're asking for in the minimum, that's okay. Okay, I have SAMS up on my screen, so I'm going to switch and share the screen with you. Here. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen. I'll just look for some nods. Can you see SAMS up? Okay, good. Thank you. On the screen, you will see that I've got a couple of fictional characters, Roger and Jessica Rabbit. Most of you, if with the process we have now with ADRC, any of you are going to find that your people, if you aren't keeping any sort of waiting list or doing anything in SAMS, you've probably already got at least most of this done. Because of ADRC and the level 1 screening, you'll already have the name, address, phone number of the person. The only thing you may not have is the services they've requested. You'll have it in your assessment, but for us to run a report, we've developed some custom fields for that, and I'll show you exactly how we do it. It's super simple. So you'll search for privacy reasons. I have already limited my list because this is being recorded. But you'll normally search and find the person if you're trying to adapt the list you have now. As you begin this process, I would think that this might be something your ADRC staff would just add as what they do when they set a person up in SAMS. Again, super simple, so I'll click on Jessica Rabbit. I know here at Grad, I've been playing with this myself and trying to get Grad's list up to date. So this is typically what I see. When I pull up someone that I'm trying to add to the waiting list in SAMS, I typically run into a person who's already in SAMS and set up, has a level 1 screening. I don't know that this one actually does she? I think I put a little one in there. No, I didn't. But typically, you're going to see that, and you're going to see they already have their address and things in here. So what you'll do when you go in is you'll use this enroll for services, which is something your ADRC probably doesn't do right now. But you'll hit this blue enroll for services, and on my screen it's over here on the left corner. But you'll click that, ask, are you sure you want to enroll? Yes, you do. And how you choose to do this is up to you. I have, because I've been working on the waiting list, you can see I've defaulted my care enrollment to waiting. That's something you can do in settings, and if there's interest in seeing that, I'll show you that at the end of this part. Basically, all you're going to do is you're going to open up this client in this teeny blue. We all know how much I love that tiny blue. And you're going to go to Add New here. And what you're adding is a custom field. So there will be two things that are crucial for you to enter here. The first one is the priority score. So you're going to come and waiting into the custom fields. You'll scroll all the way down, and it's waiting list priority level, and that is your priority score. So let's say that this one's a 51. And then we'll add our next one. And then this time, you're going to go in and tell what the service is that was requested. So the service that was requested, we'll just use the common one and go with HDM requested. And you can see there's a number of these set up already in here. You see HDM requested, you can see HM requested, you can see PC requested, PCAP requested. I believe family caregivers in here too. And I think it might be under, is it under C for caregiver or SC? CG support, CG respite. Those are already there. I said support, it's actually supplemental services, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, you get the drift, they're all there. If you find something missing, please tell me as you start to use this, and I will gladly add it. As far as I know, I think, sorry, back click, everything you need is there. And so all you do here is HDM requested and hit yes. It is crucial that you remember once you choose the field to hit yes. Please do not choose fields and hit no. If you run this report, it gets really crazy when we have yeses and nos. So please only use the fields for the services that are requested, and remember to click that yes. Once you've done that, you can add as many as you want by hitting this add next, which mine had a little delayed reaction. So I'll go to HM requested this time, and again, yes, and say okay. So now you'll have at least 2 custom fields here where you see HM requested and waiting list priority. Doesn't matter which services, it will work. The care role that you will add is this waiting. I've defaulted it in my settings just because I'm trying to work on updating the waiting list here at GRAD. And if you have someone in your team that will be doing that for you, they may want to do that as well. But the date, you'll have your application date, your receive date. The status here needs to be waiting. That's crucial. So you've got your care program, which is going to be waiting, and your service program with waiting list. And then you want your status of waiting. Now the reason we have pending resources here, so we aren't asking you to do that necessarily, but if you want to track those people who are already assessed receiving services, but you don't have enough funds to serve them fully. So for example, you may have a person receiving home delivered meals, and they may also need homemaker service or have requested that, and you don't have the units to offer them at this time. You could put that in with pending resources, and then that would pick them up separately if you have that need. That's up to you. As we use this, and I know you've all heard me talk about the drop list, if there are things that you want to see or track, please let me know. I'll work with everybody to get something that will work for all of us. But that's all you do. That's really it. So then you're going to hit save and close. Boom. That person is added to the waiting list. The other way you may see this, I'm trying to think who I have over here. If they're a person who perhaps has been served at the senior center and perhaps they already have received some services, but now their health is declined and they're going into home delivered, then you might see it like this, where they already have some care enrollment. It still works exactly the same way. You can still just add new and add your custom fields. And again, you should have a priority level for these folks. So, and then add a service requested, whatever the services may be. Hit yes, okay. Then come over here and add your care enrollment of waiting. You still need that. Down right at the bottom, We'll leave this with today's date, but again, that status should be waiting. If for some reason you want to use this waiting HDM or waiting in home services, we can work with that. That's okay too. But I have to have one of those, and I have to have the status of waiting to run the report. Okay? And save and close. Whoops! Don't we hate those? I don't know why I have an application error, but well, we'll skip that one. I don't know why that occurred, but anyway, hopefully you won't get those. This is my instructions that you will receive later. I'm going to go back to SAMS and see if it'll play nice. Do you have any questions about the custom fields and the waiting list care enrollment? Anyone? I don't see any right now, but I don't know if I can see anything or not. Okay. Hello?
Jeanette, this is Mary at Bluegrass.
Yeah.
The required quarterly updates, where will we put those?
That's a Beth question. The required quarterly updates on the waiting list, do you want those in SAMS?
I think that reports, it's my understanding from Kelly and talking in-house, Amanda as well, it's not just a Beth, that those reports will just be able to be run out of SAMS now and you won't have to submit those to Dale.
Correct. That's my understanding with Kelly as well. I didn't know if updates was something different, but as far as the quarterly report, we will run those at the state level. However, I do believe that you will have a need at the local level, particularly since we're going by the priority score, to run these as well. And what I would like to propose is I can set up a report with you for each area so that you can run your own report. There are a variety of ways to sort that, and I'll try to show you an example. But when I do that, I will have to turn off the record because I need to be able to show you everything so that you can see what it looks like, and I don't want that on YouTube. But do you all, does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Mary?
Well, just as a process question, you know, we contract out our case management and we send them out the wait list with, and then, you know, the current status of it. And then they are required to update it. So they put notes in and let us know who to take off, who, you know, what's happened, if they need additional services, that kind of thing. So just, it may be just that we have to continue with what we're currently doing with our spreadsheet and, you know, run the two systems, which is not ideal, but
does it sound,
just thinking through the process.
do Jeanette and I
Right. I think you could do that in journals if you wanted to.
In journal.
Certainly in SAMS journals, those would be available to you for each client if that would work for you.
Okay.
But as far as Dale's requirements, my understanding is that the list is not going to be sent anymore. You won't be required to send that quarterly report anymore. That's one less thing you'll have to send to Dale.
Okay. So just for internal use then, the case managers sometimes like to print out the waiting list and take it with them as they're going out to open people and that kind of thing. Will the report give them, if we add things to the journal, will the report pull from the journal notes or?
It doesn't pull from the journal notes, but Mary, you're in a little different situation. Some of yours could actually be done through activities because you all use those heavily.
Jeanette, why don't you and I work with Mary?
Okay.
And I
We
think
can do
Barbara has
that.
a question.
All right, thanks.
Yes, I've got a couple of questions here in the chat. Is that okay, Mary?
Because yours,
yeah, that's fine.
I think that yours works a little differently.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
And I think everybody's going to have a little different process on this, so I've tried to make it as basic as possible.
Yeah.
I have a question here on the custom fields. Could you default to a yes answer? And I'm sorry, no, we can't. I wish we could. I will double check on that, but I don't believe so. I think you have to remember to click that yes. And then I have a question about not being able to see the enrollment for services. The enroll for services would be on callers. So when you say enroll for services is that you can't see it, I'm assuming you mean you don't see that blue that I clicked on that said enroll for services. That is on callers. Again, if you have a person who was in the senior center or already receiving services some other way, then they would be in the consumer list and you would not see that. You would simply add that care enrollment. I do need to make sure that care enrollment is available to everybody, and I believe it is, but I will double check that too.
Have you found it yet?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
When you did the app next. Well, no, anyway.
I see a hand raised. I'm going to unmute. Oh, I thought I was. There you go. Barbara, I can
hear us?
Okay, Barbara, go ahead.
There's an echo.
There is an echo, definitely.
I'll type.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Any other questions? Okay. If it's all right with everybody, I will turn this off record simply because with the report, it's just needs to be kept confidential. Okay. I'll see what I can do. If you don't see that enroll for services for any reason, please let me know. I have one area saying they don't. So if you don't, let me know that and we'll do what we need to do to fix that. Now, before I turn off the recording part and go into the reports, what I do want to say to you is that as far as getting this in SAMS, believe me, I know, because I know in Green River we have probably 200 to 300 on the waiting list. So I realize it's a process if you haven't been doing this, and we certainly haven't here. But it goes pretty quick doing what I just showed you. And the deadline for you all to have this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, but I believe will be like the end of September, the first quarter report. So you've got several months to get up to speed. And I realize it is an extra thing to do, but hopefully it's fairly simple. And most of you have pieces of it already. So it should be fairly easy. Okay. Now I'm going to jump off of here and I'll go over to reports. I will show you that the report you're looking for is a consumer's type report, and it is the consumer listing report. So that's where it's going to be run out of. And then I've got mine highlighted to grads, and I will show you what you'll typically have in your filters. In your filters, you'll title it. Most of us use the naming convention with our agency. So I have mine grad-waiting list. Then you'll choose your columns for consumer. Another quick tip before I do that. I'm looking at my screen and I feel like I was in an area the other day and I feel like I would be doing disservice if I didn't say this to you. But in the subtitle and description, Those are things that show up in your report definition screen. So if you want to write some sort of special instruction on there for yourself, do that. It's always helpful for whoever comes behind you, to let them know if there's any settings they need to change or different ways to run the report. Then go into your report settings. You're going to choose your columns for your consumer. And typically, you would have your client ID, probably the county of residence, the name, the phone number, town, zip code, and just say OK. Then you're not going to choose any columns for consumer group because this would not apply to any consumer groups. I usually leave my print parameters at no. When you choose print parameters, yes, that's going to basically give a full page which details each filter of the report. Then your print locations, I typically use home or residence. Now this is something that you will want to talk with your ADRC staff about. For this to run, you need to know when they are putting in addresses, what are they putting as the type? Typically it's home or residence. It could be mailing. You can go with any of those. Now this is where you get into grouping. And there's a lot of ways you can group this. What I've chosen to do is to group it by county and then by the custom field. Now, this is really interesting. When you get into the custom fields, it's at the bottom of the report where you're going to find which custom field it is you're grouping by. And that's going to be the waiting list priority level. That's going to allow you to see by county your people on the waiting list, the services they've requested, and their priority score. And so when you see the report, it will actually print out with the county, and then it will have the person and your scores will be in order. And that's going to help you as you're trying to determine which person is next in line for services. So you can do it that way. There's a lot of different ways, but that's what I would recommend. You do have a third grouping. You could do that. I don't know what that would be right off, but you can do that if you want to. We have tested this, and what we have found is that this third group, if you try another custom field, it just doesn't seem to work. So I recommend going with the waiting list priority level and going from there. You can group per page if you so choose. I usually have mine sort by last name. I just like it that way when I have people listed, but in this case, it's going to group by that priority level, so it really doesn't apply. You're going to print your consumer details, and that's going to print out the name, address, phone, etc., and the services requested. You'll see what that looks like. Now, I leave my display custom fields at any. If you only want to look at, say, home delivered meals requested, you can do that. You can choose the ones that you want to see. But I recommend usually using it for any. Consumer groups, I would say no, because you shouldn't have any consumer groups on the waiting list. The report header, another place that you can write notes to yourself if you choose. It's optional. Then here in care enrollment, you would go in the enrollment status and you can see the ones that I've chosen: waiting, waiting HDM, waiting in-home services. And that means any of those that you choose, so long as you choose one of those statuses, they will pull into the report. Hopefully that works for everybody. Then I don't do anything with any of these dates or status dates on this. I just leave them open because we want to pick up everyone. The care providers would just be your default agency. And then you can see everything else is just left at any and left blank. Then the only other thing we will do, I've got my location type selected on here. Those, I think, again, are home and residence, no mailing. So I've got mailing and residence. Then there's nothing else selected. You'll see all these are 0, which means I don't have anything selected in those parameters. The only other one I have is down at the bottom, and that is this custom field. And this is how we're going to order the report. We're going to order it by the score of the custom field. So we just go in and we add. Well, let me delete it so I can add it and show you. So we go in, we click Add, Custom Field will be waiting list priority level, and then you're going to change this compare to make it greater than 0. So that's how we do it. And just say OK, and OK. And now the report's ready to go. So at this point, are there other questions that you want to ask about that? Okay. Then I will turn off the recording somewhere. There we go. No. It doesn't want to let me stop recording in the middle of it. Great. Okay. I'll tell you what I will do. I will get a report that I can run and show you and send it out as an example so you can see what it looks like. That's where I can stop the recording, maybe. Yeah, someone wants to see it. Will we get a step-by-step protocol for this to be provided? And yes, you will. Okay, so come back. Now I can stop recording. So I'm going to stop at this moment, and that will allow me to show the report to you. Okay, what question do you have?
We're wondering if there's any way to show notes on the report, like who to contact, build in that way.
That would be a different report, and that's something that Beth and I will have to work with you on.
Okay.
And you've got a new question at the bottom on the chat button.
It isn't. Okay, now I see them. Okay. Is there an option to add a filter of date of last assessment so we can better track the needs of who? I'll look into that. I'm going to write that down because that's not one that I had thought about. Okay. Yes, you are welcome to call me about the enrollment for services afterward for the area that's having that difficulty, and we'll see what's going on. And I think that covers everyone's questions at this point. Feel free to use the group chat, or the only thing about raising your hand is I may or may not see you because I only see, at this point, some of you because I've got my screen shared, so I can only see some of you in my view at this point. Okay, so this is the instructions I've come up with, and there's one extra thing I do need to show you in SAMS. There's one extra part, and that is maintaining the waiting list. So what you will need to do once you have started a person on the services they requested, you will need to come back in here and delete that custom field. So really it's pretty simple. There's a red X. You click that they no longer need HDM, But if they still need homemaker, you can still leave them there for that and leave the waiting list up. If you're fulfilling both those services and they no longer need to be on the waiting list at all, then what you'll do is click the exclamation requested and click the X on waiting, although when I do, it's going to tell me I have to have a care enrollment, which is fine. So now it's going to say, before I can close it, that I have to have a care program. So.
Oh, sorry.
And
Why they do that.
so I'm going to go ahead and add that as if I were adding them in. And basically it'd be whatever care enrollment that you need to add for that person. So if they are receiving meals, it could be C2. So I'll go with Title III home delivered meals and whatever the start date. And now the status would be active. And say, okay. And now it'll let me save and close it. And now it's going to give me the pop-ups because I don't have the required NAPAs in there. I'm sure you all have all seen those. Okay, I'm going to look. It looks like I have a couple of new messages. That's a great question. I have a question. Can the custom field score be auto-populated to match the level 1 screening score? And it says, otherwise we will need to update the score in the consumer record each time a waitlist update occurs. No, the custom fields are not something that auto-populate. You would have to update it in that client record each time, I do believe. I will check on that because I do know there is a way to bring the field onto the client record. However, they don't, because it's a custom field, it doesn't actually link to anything, if that makes sense. In other words, within the assessment questions, there's nothing that links to a custom field. I'll talk to WellSky, whatever their name is this week, and see if there is a way that that can be done. It's a great idea. I don't know if it can. Other questions? I don't see any. You all have been very attentive and asked some great questions that I will definitely research. Oh, I have one more. The only, will this function track how long they were on the wait list? Actually, yes, it will. The report may or may not show that, but if you do it with your date, that's the reason of putting that date in when you're adding the person to the waiting list. So if you're updating a list from, like I'm having to do, because we didn't have anything in SAMS other than our level 1 screening, if you're doing that, then make sure you're going by the date that person actually did go on the waiting list. That would be your application date. You know, in SAMS, if you want to, you've always had the ability to change those dates. Here at GRAD, the decision was made that it would trigger from the assessment date originally. So that was our date. But you might have everything on waiting, in other words, as the date that they became eligible on the waiting list, not necessarily eligible, the date they came on the waiting list, and then come back and have a different date for your start date and your enrollment, certainly. But your application date, receive date, status date, start date, all of those can be different, and you can do separate tracking if you choose. But we're not saying you have to. but for the waiting list, it needs to be the date they went on the waiting list. So when you close someone on the wait list, it will report how long they were on there. I think there would be a way to do that. However, once you close them on the wait list, they won't show on your waiting list report, if you know what I mean. You could certainly have another report that queued back to people who were previously on the waiting list. Well, or could you? No, once you close them out, you would not have that. You would lose that unless you keep that application date. If you keep that application date, then your application date would be how you could run a report and look at how long people were on there before they got service. And then I have a question, will the National Family Caregiver Priority Rating Tool be added to as a SAMS assessment? I'll have to talk to Moralia about that. I have not seen that priority rating tool. If there is a universal one that's in use, then certainly it could be, but I'll talk to her about that. How can we generate a report that lets us know how long they were on the wait list? I think what you would do is you would run a report by care enrollment and run it with the dates. But I'll have to play with that. That's a new question. I think it's a great question. Certainly something that would be beneficial to have, and I will look at that. And that now fills my queue, I think, of questions that we have out there. Have I answered everyone? Looking through the list. Have you thought of any other questions? Okay, I will research those because I think they're great questions and find out, and I'll talk with Moralia about the National Family Caregiver Priority Tool. But if there aren't any other questions, that will close it out for me today. And I thank you all for your attention. Feel free to contact me and I'll be happy to work with you, specifically on reports for sure, to make sure that you're able to get the information you need. And if you have any difficulty as you're trying to do this, do let me know and I'll be glad to help you out. Okay, have a great day, everybody.
Thanks very much, Jeanette.
Bye-bye.